Man, these are certainly some really confusing times, and I know I'm not the only one who shares in this confusion. And it's not really for the lack of information. Sometimes it's just contextualizing the information. We're bombarded with so much information from so many sources, but yet we're not exactly sure what the context of that information is. That's one of the reasons I love Twitter. I actually enjoy that platform because Twitter, for the most part, is its own context. Like if you read a quote from somebody on Twitter, they're quoting themselves in the context that they intended it to be in. So you can read that statement and go, oh, this is what that person meant. I think that's really helpful because that kind of shows where they're coming from, what they're thinking, what they're trying to express, because they control the context. Now, the rest of the information that we receive from the different outlets and from social media and, from what we read in the articles, wow, it can be tough. Sometimes you read a quote and you don't know what was said before or after or what was happening or even what the question was, and it can be really confusing. And these are confusing times, and there is a lot of information. What we really need is we need context. But I've got some good news for you. I've got the best context you could ever imagine. You see, God gives us the context because God is the context. You see, he's not just like a part of the truth. He's not just a piece of the story. He's the whole deal. He is the context. That's why I love the memory verse for this series. Jesus is speaking to us, and he is telling us, hey, you're going to have some issues in this world. In fact, if we follow Jesus, we should probably anticipate there being an uptick in the issues we encounter. But when he is our context, he then contextualizes the troubles and the hardships and the difficulties that we face. Our memory verse is found in John chapter 16, verse 33. And as we read this together, I hope that you'll hear these words and think about them in regards to what we're experiencing today. Jesus says this to you. He says this to you right now. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. My friends, I want you to know something. Jesus understands the trouble. He understands the difficulties. He understands that we are confused, but he's saying, I don't want you to be confused about this. You don't have to have the full picture or understand every element of it, but if you know that he does understand every element of it because he is the full picture, then we can take heart in him. In other words, what he's offering us is he's offering us heart. He's offering us a new heart. He says, here, take heart. You need a new heart. And he gives it to us. I need a new heart. You need a new heart. We all need new hearts, and he gives it to us. Take it, receive it, accept it. Let him give you a new heart because you need a new heart. And he's the one who can give it because he has overcome the world. And so here's the deal. We all have heart issues. Heart issues that come in, and it is out of the heart that our core identity is expressed. This is who we are. And when our hearts aren't right, it really messes up everything. You see, here's the big deal about heart issues. When it comes to heart issues distort our worldview. When the heart's not right, nothing's right. When our heart is not in a position where we are standing firm and secure and have peace, well then, there's not going to be any peace anywhere else. I mean, all this conflict that we experience in this world, it comes from an inner conflict. Within our hearts, we're stirred up and we're freaked out and we're worried and we're confused. And it's because we can't contextualize everything that we're experiencing. I mean, how often have you heard someone express during these times, where is God in this? Well, they can't see him because of a heart issue. They've lost him in that. And that can happen to me. It can happen to you. God, where are you in this? And our worldview is distorted because of our heart issues. But listen to what it says in Matthew chapter 5, verse 8. This is in the Sermon on the Mount, one of the Beatitudes. Jesus says, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the pure in heart. Jesus says, take heart. Here, I'm going to give you a heart, a pure heart. and I'm going to give this to you. When you receive this and you accept this from him, then you have peace. Take heart. He gives us peace because he has overcome the world. And when our hearts are pure, when our hearts are right, well, then we can see God. We can recognize him instead of losing sight of him and saying, okay, God, where are you? What are you doing in this moment? When he becomes our context, we realize that he is in it and through it and over it and around it, and he has control and dominion and authority, and he has not abandoned us, and he never will. He is with us. Take heart. Blessed are the pure in heart. We're blessed. We're happy. We're content. We're whole. We're complete. When our hearts are pure, because we can see God. You see, we have a worldview that begins to make some sense out of the chaos, because God is our sense. He is our context. Instead of having a distorted worldview that says, okay, well, if I follow Jesus, then I'm not going to have any trouble. I'm not going to have any hardship. There's not going to be any economic difficulties. And there's not going to be any sickness. There's not going to be any relational troubles. No, see, that's going to create some significant heart issues. Because there's an impurity there. We have an impure worldview. We don't understand that he is our context. And in the midst of the struggles, in the midst of the difficulties, he is our context. He's the one that allows us to understand and process what we're experiencing, because he's giving us a pure heart. And so in the midst of that, we can then recognize God. When our hearts are pure, we can say, oh, there you are, God. We can recognize God in the world. Instead of looking around at the world and going, oh, man, the world's just going to hell in a handbasket. No, we could say, oh, you know what? There was a sunrise today. Yes, there's God. I mean, like from the beginning of every day. To be in awe of a God who gives us another day on this amazing planet that he's created, in this world, this beautiful creation, not only of nature and trees and the forests and the mountains and the seas and the lakes and the streams and the animals, but also people and you. Like, you are his creation. And when we know that, okay, now we can be in awe of him and recognize him in something as simple as the sunrise, but as magnificent. Throughout the whole day, all the way to the sun set, even the air we breathe, when there is air in our lungs and we have breath in our bodies, and these bodies are still functioning, that is a living declaration. There is a God. He is here. We can recognize him in the world. We'll also be able to recognize him in others. Guys, this is so important. You see, one of the things we do is we so constantly dehumanize people when we lose the context. We turn them into objects. We objectify them. You can do this like sexually. You can objectify a person and begin to lust after them. You can also do it in the way that, we look at these social contracts. You only have value to me as long as you are like upholding your end of our relational bargain. And if you somehow drop the ball or don't meet me where I think you should meet me or do what I expected you to do, well, then now you have no value to me and I cut you off. But when you start to recognize God and others, oh, wait a minute, that person, that's a person. That's a person that God created. That's a person that God loved. That's a person that Jesus died for. Hold on now. Now we start to see them differently. That is a total game changer. We recognize God. We see the context, and out of that pure heart, we go, oh, okay, well, yes, sometimes I may still be disappointed or wounded or hurt. You're still a child of God, and I can recognize God in you. And instead of writing you off or, making gross assumptions about you, I can see a God in you and recognize you from this pure heart that I've taken from Jesus. Take heart. And we can also recognize God in you, in ourselves. When we look in the mirror to go, oh, yes, I am a child of God. I belong to him. What a wonderful thing it is to be able to do that. Now, as we do that, we'll see the next thing, that heart issues are deadly. They're just deadly. So when the heart's not right, nothing's right. Physical conditions, like if you have a heart issue, they're going to deal with that one first. They want to get the heart right, make sure the heart's right, because if the heart's not right, nothing's right, and they're deadly. And so these heart issues that we experience, they kill our families, our friendships, and our faith. And so when there's a heart issue, it's going to kill our families, our friendships, and our faith. That's why so many of these relationships are dying on the vine. Our relationship with our family, the ones that we're co-inhabiting with, and the ones that are supposed to be our closest social relationships are often severed and broken because of an impurity in the heart, a heart issue. It kills our friendships and those that are working relationships because of distrust and the war that happens there, as opposed to receiving this peace and this new heart that God gives. And it kills our faith. Even our relationship with God becomes severed through these heart issues. In Matthew chapter 13, beginning in verse 18, Jesus has told a parable. It's about different kinds of soil, and he explains it to his disciples. Verse 18, he says, "Listen then to what the parable of the sower means. When anyone hears the message about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in the heart. This is the seed sown along the path. The seed falling on the rocky ground refers to someone who hears the word and at once receives it with joy, but since they have no root, they last only a short time. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they quickly fall away. The seed falling among the thorns refers to someone who hears the word, but the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth, they choke the word, making it unfruitful. But the seed falling on the good soil refers to someone who hears the word and understands it. This is the one who produces a crop yielding 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown." And so here Jesus is talking, he's talking about, okay, the word. When the word comes on this soil, there's these different kinds of soil, but he says, when the word comes. Now, the word that he's talking about here is this amazing message of hope and salvation. The word, the context of who God is, who we are in relationship to God, what he has promised and what he has already done, the salvation that he has for us. When this amazing word comes in about who we are and our identity in him, and that he is offering us a new heart, that in the midst of trouble and persecution and hardship and difficulties, that we have the opportunity to know that God is our context. He is our ultimate reality, and we are able to take a new heart from him. And so this word, this good news, the greatest news ever, that declares that you are so much more than just a temporary being to inhabit this time and space. Instead, you were created for eternity, with eternity in mind, to be a part of God's eternal kingdom, to have a room in his house and a seat at his table, that no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, or no matter what's been done to you, that there is healing and wholeness in store for you. This changes everything, this amazing word. And so Jesus talks about this word, it being like seed that lands on soil. And so essentially what he does is he says there's 4 types of soil, or 4 types of hearts. The first one would be a hard heart. And a hard heart is you can tell if you have a hard heart by if you have hard feelings and difficulty. The hard heart is the one where it doesn't even penetrate the soil at all. It just kind of bounces off there. You see that hard heart is one that just can't understand. It just doesn't understand. It doesn't make sense to it. It refuses to accept the message. The second would be a crowded heart. The crowded heart is when it's just so full of other stuff. It's cluttered. There's no room for the seed to really take root. It may spring up quickly and be like, oh yeah, this is great. But a lot of times it happens, we're like, okay, yeah, I can accept it. Yeah, this does really sound like good news. Oh man, that's fantastic. But there's so many other things, so many other concerns, so much in there crowding it. The next one would be the worried heart. The worried heart is like the thorns come in and the deceitfulness of wealth, and it chokes it out. This happens so oftentimes. I mean, just think about what we're worried about. I'm not telling you that your worries aren't valid. That'd be crazy. You probably have lots of things that you could be worried about. But when he becomes our context and we trust him, man, it only begins to make sense when we say, okay, wait, if I'm trusting Jesus with my eternal life and my soul, the very essence of who I am, and I'm receiving this new heart, I'm taking this new heart, then why wouldn't we accept his peace as well? To say, okay, there will be hardship, there will be issues, there will be troubles, and my worrying doesn't do anything to help it. In fact, it just makes it worse. It takes this pure heart that he's given me, and it makes it impure. And so it's like those thorns that just choke the life right out of the plant. And this is what happens with our faith a lot of times. The worries of this world just choke the life right out of what Jesus has planted in us. And so here's the type of heart that he wants us to have, a fertile heart. I love what he says. It's the fertile heart. The seed hits the fertile heart, and it takes root, and then it produces a crop. And he says 160, 30 times what was sown. This is the kind of heart that he longs for us to have. And so I think for any of us, at any point in time, we can have any one of these conditions, a hard heart, a crowded heart, a worried heart, or a fertile heart. But I know what he wants. He wants us to have fertile hearts. Hearts that are reproducing spiritually. Hearts that as we are praying for one, God, please give me one person to share your love with, that his love is not only coming into us, but taking root in us and coming out of a wellspring of our hearts, these new hearts that he's given us. That love is being expressed, and it's his love. Sacrificial, unending, never failing love that he has put in us that is now moving through us, and it produces a crop. This is the type of heart that God wants for us to have, because these heart issues are deadly. And so if we don't pay attention to the symptoms, is my heart hard? Have I been pushing away or aside the promises of God? Have I gotten angry at God? I think it's time to do a little heart work here and say, okay, God, search me and know my heart. You can actually say that out loud right now. God, search me and know my heart. God, show me my heart. Try that right now. God, show me my heart. He will. And the hard heart, even in that moment, might be like, I'm not praying that. No way. No how. It's none of his business. Well, it is his business. And if that was you, like, I'm not praying that, maybe it's a symptom of a hard heart where right now you go, oh, okay, God, show me my heart. And I know sometimes we're afraid. We're afraid of what we might find out or what we might see. And so, like, we put that off. You can certainly do this with your physical health. Like, you're nervous, you're concerned, and so you put off getting that checkup. You put off having those tests done. You put off getting that blood work. You put off making that visit. Guys, don't put this off. It is too important. Heart issues are deadly. They're killing our families. They're killing our friendships. They're killing our faith. Let Jesus do some work right now. God, show me my heart. And if it's hard, let him do some work in your heart to soften it, to bring it back to life, to have it begin to pump again with his love. Or maybe it's a crowded heart. That in you right now, it's just, you've put so many other things there, and oftentimes those things are ahead of Jesus. They take precedence and authority over him. And yeah, I'll obey Jesus as long as it doesn't conflict with this other thing that I've crowded in there. And today might be a day where he wants to remove some of those things, some of the stones from the heart, do a little work and clean house a little bit. God, show me my heart. Maybe it's that worried heart. And along with that, the deceitfulness of wealth, because they often do go hand in hand. So many of our worries are financially related. We get so just caught up into a false identity of being consumers where we think we are what we have or what we can get. And when that feels threatened, then the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth can just throw us off kilter and choke the life of Jesus right out of us. Maybe it's time today for Jesus to come in and really prune, to cut out the thorns and remove them so that we can have a fertile heart. Hearts that are beating in rhythm with the heartbeat of God, that are full and pulsating with his love, that just can't wait to share his love with those that we have the opportunity to, everyone we encounter, not just someone's and not just the idea of anyone, but really everyone, every encounter that we have, to have these fertile hearts. And so search me, God, know my heart, show me my heart and whatever the issues are, because here's the good news. Jesus fixes broken hearts. He is a great physician, a great one, and he fixes broken hearts. And so where my heart is broken or where your heart is broken, when we trust him with our hearts, Jesus says, okay, here, take heart. Take it. Receive it. This is what he does. He's a healer and he can make us whole. He's a great physician. Psalm chapter 34, verse 18 It says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Oh, thanks be to God. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit. And so maybe you find yourself in a position today where your heart is broken. There's a lot of reasons for broken hearts, but he's close to the brokenhearted. All right, so here's a few reasons that our hearts are broken. One of them is sin, and I don't want to ignore that. I mean, the thing about sin is it breaks our hearts because it separates us from God. And if you have a relationship with Jesus, okay, nothing can separate you from him. But when sin comes in, it puts some kind of barrier in the relationship. There's a relational disconnect that happens there that God doesn't want for us. And so when it comes to sin, I would just encourage us to get into a place where I think like a real key indicator that this could be an issue for us is when we're really busy being disgusted at other people's sin. Like a lot of finger pointing and a lot of look there and look over there and see what those people are doing and look at that. I would just ask you this question. When was the last time you were truly brokenhearted over your own sin? When was the last time? Search me, God, and know my heart. Show me my heart. And if there is sin, if there is anything in between me and you, God, let me be brokenhearted over that because he heals the brokenhearted. He is close to the brokenhearted, and he can restore and heal you. So let's not play pretend. Let's not play the comparison game. Let's not do the finger pointing thing. Rather, God, show me my heart. Show me my heart and bring healing and wholeness there. The next would be grief. Grief comes when there is loss. Now, one of the most obvious ways that we grieve is when there's a death, the loss of a loved one. And that mourning that comes out of that, he's close to the brokenhearted and those who are crushed in spirit. He brings healing. And so if in that grief, maybe it is the loss of a loved one and you're grieving that, well, okay, God can heal. He can give you a new heart. Take heart. There is eternal hope in him and in his family. But death isn't the only kind of loss that we experience. There can be the loss of a job, an identity loss, a loss of a possession, a loss of a relationship, a loss of a dream, a loss of innocence. And sometimes it's not just that we lost them or we were careless with these things. Sometimes they're taken away unjustly and wrongly and sometimes in a very cruel fashion, and it leaves a wound. And Jesus is close to the brokenhearted, and he can restore and he can heal. And the third is those wounds. Those wounds that have come in, the things that we've experienced in this life, and they leave their mark on us. They're very real. Now, Jesus is a great physician, and he can take our wounds and he can provide the healing we're so desperate for. And so where there's been betrayal or abuse or neglect, he can bring healing and wholeness to you. In the midst of grief and loss, he can bring healing and wholeness to you. In the midst of our own sin, he can bring healing and wholeness to us. And so I know a lot of times we look at our pains, the things that we've experienced. I mean, we can even do this with our own sin and go, no, this is mine. This is mine. And we try to hold on to it and we try to maintain it. In essence, we harbor it. But you don't have to harbor this anymore. You can be healed. You can be healed, made whole, restored. I don't mean to just like go through a process of healing, but to actually be healed. He is a miracle worker, and he can do this today when we open up our hearts and say, okay, God, you are my context. You are my ultimate reality. You are my authority. I want to receive this new heart that you offer and have this peace. And he is right there with you. God, show me my heart. Now, when it comes to experiencing all that God has for us, it happens as we are forgiven. He forgives us. In fact, if you have a relationship with Jesus, just out loud right now, would you say, I am forgiven? Because I don't know if you've ever declared that before, but it's a powerhouse statement to say, wait, I am forgiven. It's an aha moment sometimes just to even hear yourself say it. Maybe it's been said to you before, hey, you're forgiven. Jesus forgives you. But let's say it out loud. I am forgiven. Try it. I am forgiven. Now think about that for a moment. I am forgiven. Whoa. Wait a minute. Not because I deserve it, not because I earn it, not because I achieved it, but by his grace, I am forgiven. Okay, yeah. He declares this, and he is my ultimate context. So say it again. I am forgiven. Say it like you mean it. I am forgiven. Yeah. Yeah, you are. Now, here's the thing. If our hearts become duplicitous, we have been forgiven, but we don't forgive others, now we've got a real heart issue. Major heart issue. There is a real problem because check this out. Forgiveness is a heart healer. It's a heart healer. His forgiveness heals my heart. His forgiveness heals your heart. But a truly healed heart will then share his forgiveness with others. That's a powerful thing. You see, you know you've been forgiven when you are then able to forgive others. Guys, it's an interesting thing. I think maybe we've rejected God's forgiveness, or it could be a sign of that when we refuse to forgive others. In Matthew chapter 18, verse 21, one of Jesus' disciples, Peter, came to Jesus. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? And Jesus answered, I tell you not 7 times, but 77. Oh, man. Here's one of Jesus's 12, Peter, one that was closest to him, the rock that Jesus is going to build his church on. And Peter's been with him, and he's been listening to Jesus, and he's like, okay, so, the kind of the standard mentality was like kind of 3 strikes and you're out. If somebody wrongs you, once, okay, twice, well, I probably should have been paying close attention. 3 times, you're done. You're out of here. Never again. And so Peter's like, all right, 7. 7 feels pretty good. Hey, Jesus, how many times should I forgive my brother or sister when that person sins against me? Like 7? And Jesus is like, no, you're not even close, buddy. I tell you 77 or 70 times 7. And the number really doesn't even make sense. It's about not keeping score anymore. Really, you're going to keep a tablet there, make a note on your phone, okay, well, all right, now I'm at 76 now, buddy. You get 1 more. Now, Jesus is saying you can be set free from all that scorekeeping. You've been freely given, been freely forgiven, so now you can freely forgive. And when you do that, when you forgive others like you've been forgiven, it removes all those hard feelings from our hearts. And I want you to think about what life would be like without hard feelings. A no hard feelings kind of life. You see, hard hearts put out hard feelings. And when our hearts become hard towards God, or towards our family, towards our neighbors, towards our coworkers, towards the greater culture that we live in, towards other people, that's because our hearts have become hard. And those hard feelings are expressions of that. Here's a few examples of some hard feelings. Jealousy. Jealousy, man, that's a hard feeling. To look at another person or another group of people and to be jealous of that person or those people, that's a hard feeling to maintain and to foster and to live with. It's a hard feeling that Jesus would be happy to take. Another one would be suspicion. To be suspicious of other people and their motives, to assume the worst in others. When you really dig into this and you realize what we've been forgiven of, and if you can really look in the mirror and go, okay, wait a minute, it's one thing for me to assume the worst in others, but I know the worst in me. And if Jesus would forgive the worst in me, then why would I even be suspicious of the motivations of others? That's a hard feeling. To assume the worst and to attribute these things. When we are truly forgiven and set free, we don't have to carry that anymore. That's a hard feeling. Another hard feeling would be resentment. To hold something against other people You did this, so I'm going to remember it, I'm going to foster it, I'm going to maintain it, and I'm going to hold it against you for as long as I possibly can. Man, that is a hard feeling, and our God does not have hard feelings. He doesn't resent you, he doesn't resent me, he doesn't resent anyone, so why would we resent others? He can set us free from that. He says, here, take heart. Here's a new heart. You can have peace with everyone. And one more hard feeling, the hard feeling of regret. I should have. I could have. I wish I would have. If only I hadn't. Those are hard feelings. And we're really not built for these types of feelings. We're built to have hearts that are alive and fruitful, where this amazing good news about who God is and what he's done and who we are in relationship to him and his great and precious promises come in and take root and then produce a wonderful crop. And he can take these hard feelings and provide a new context where he is our ultimate reality. And in the midst of trying circumstances, yes, we understand that he is with us. And we can take this new heart that he offers us. And then we can live a life at peace with God, knowing that we're not his enemies. He is not against us. He is for us. I just want you to understand the ramifications of that. God is not against you. He is for you. His commands are not anti-you. They are pro-you. You are not his enemy. He has sent his son Jesus to make peace between you and him. And now he is sending you into this world to help others have peace with him. And so we ought to live a life just as God has done for us, where we have no enemies. No enemies. Aren't you just like sick and tired of maintaining this warring attitude? Aren't you just fed up with it? Like looking at the global landscape and going, okay, well, who are our enemies now? Who are we mad at in the global scale? Those people over there, they look different than us. We're going to be mad at them. Those people over there, well, they have a different type of government. We're going to be our enemies. That's a lot of work. Who's going to be our enemies today? And then we just bring it a little closer to home. All right, right here in the good old USFA. All right, how are we going to divide today? Let's do it over political parties. Oh, you lean this way and I lean this way, so boom, put up the divide. Let's be enemies and let's go to war and let's say our little things. Let's make sure that we fester and fight and divide. Oh my goodness, we need a greater context that here is this God who is for us, not against us. Why are we going to war? It's because we have heart issues. Well, why are we having enemies with the news outlets that we would choose to watch or engage in? Why are we having enemies at work? Why are we having enemies with our governmental authorities? Why are we having enemies with our neighbors? Why are we having enemies in our own homes? Because of a heart issue. Yet there is healing and hope right here, right now. For you. Like right now, like if you just went, yeah, I really wish John would hear this message, or, oh my goodness, I really wish my Aunt Martha could hear this message, or, oh my goodness, I really wish my spouse could hear this. How about you? How about I just hear this message? I mean, you just hear this message and say, yes. Take heart here, take it. Jesus says, I have it for you, take it. Receive it. And let all those hard feelings go away, because you don't need them anymore, because you have a greater context. And so if you would, right where you are right now, maybe just open up your hands to receive. Seriously, just open them up, put them on your lap. Don't fold your arms right now. That's hard feelings. Just open up your hands. Put them on your laps and say, okay, all right, God, give me a new heart. And just listen to the words of this song that's going to be sung right now. Just listen and receive this new heart from him. God, speak to us right now in the name of Jesus, we ask. And give us a new heart. Yes, Lord.